What's up, y'all? It's Evan, and I'm here to give you another update on all things DMV sports. As per usual, we start with college football and the Maryland Terrapins. So for Maryland, it was a pretty good week. They held on for a 31-24 win over Northwestern. The win improves the Terrapins to 6-2, 3-2 in the Big Ten. That's good for fourth in the East Division. But the most important part, the win over the Wildcats, means the Terrapins are now bowl eligible for the second year in a row, the earliest they've clinched since 2001 when they went to the Peach Bowl. Up next for the Terps, they have a bye week. So enjoy the bye, Maryland fans. You've more than earned it, and I bet you feel pretty good right now. Up next, let's talk about the Navy midshipmen. So this past week, the Yankees weren't exactly the only team getting lit up by Houston. The Mids got by the Cougars by the score of 38-20 to the tune of Clayton Tune's 5 touchdowns. The loss drops the midshipmen to 2-5, 2-3 in the American Athletic Conference. That's good for 7th place in the conference standings. Up next for the Mids, they're back at home next week against the Temple Owls. Temple comes in at 2-5, 0-3 in the American Athletic. That's good for 10th place ahead of only South Florida. The Owls are coming off a 27-16 loss against Tulsa last week, where they were outscored 27-6 in the last 3 quarters after leading 10-0 after the first. Up next, let's talk about the Virginia Cavaliers. So Virginia needed a win this past week. It wasn't ugly, but they got it 16-9 at Georgia Tech. The Cavaliers actually shut the Yellow Jackets out in the second half after leading 13-9 at halftime. The win improves the Cavaliers to 3-4, 1-3 in the ACC, still last place in the Coastal Division. Up next for the Wahoos, they return home to host the Miami Hurricanes. Miami comes in at 3-4, 1-2 in the ACC. That's good for 5th in the Coastal Division standings. The Hurricanes are coming off a 45-21 loss against Duke, where they turned it over 8 times. And we're going to wrap up this college football segment by talking about the Virginia Tech Hokies. So you didn't hear too much about Virginia Tech this past week. That's because the Hokies were coming off of a bye. So they remain at 2-5, 1-3 in the ACC. That's good for 6th place in the Coastal Division standings, ahead of only Virginia. Up next for the Hokies, they head to Raleigh to take on the 24th ranked NC State Wolfpack. NC State comes in at 5-2, 1-2 in the ACC. That's good for 6th in the Atlantic Division, ahead of only Boston College. The Wolfpack are also coming off a bye, so these will be 2 well-rested teams going head-to-head in Raleigh. And now we switch to hockey and the Washington Capitals. So the Caps got a much-needed win on Saturday, a comeback 4-3 win over the Kings, in which they scored 4 goals in the third period after going into the frame down 2-0. The win improves the Caps to 3-3. That's good for 6 points, and they're tied with New Jersey and Columbus for 4th place in the Metropolitan Division. So here's the week ahead for Washington. For the Capitals, the week begins tonight as they head to New Jersey to take on the Devils. The Devils come in at 3-2, 6 points. They're tied with Washington and Columbus for 4th in the Metropolitan Division, as you just heard earlier. New Jersey's coming off a 2-1 win over the Sharks on Saturday, and they've won 3 in a row. This is the first of 4 between the Caps and the Devils. Last season, Washington won 2 out of 3 against New Jersey. On Thursday, the Capitals head to Dallas to take on the Stars. The Stars are currently 4-0-1. That's good for 9 points and 1st place in the Central Division. Yes, the Central Division that has the defending Stanley Cup champion Avalanche in it. Dallas is coming off a 5-2 win in Montreal on Saturday. They're on a 5-game point streak to start the season. This is the first of 2 between the Caps and the Stars. Last season, Washington and Dallas split a pair with the road team winning both. And for the Capitals, the week and the month conclude on Saturday when they head to Nashville to take on the Predators. The Predators are currently 2-4-1. That's good for 5 points and 5th place in the Central Division. Nashville's coming off a 3-1 loss against the Flyers on Saturday. They've lost 5 in a row, and they have yet to win this season on U.S. soil. This is the first of 2 between the Caps and the Preds. Last season, Washington won both meetings against Nashville. And we're going to wrap up this update with basketball and the Washington Wizards. So for the Wizards, it was a hard-fought affair on Sunday, but they came up just short, falling 117-107 in overtime in Cleveland, thanks to 37 points by Donovan Mitchell. The loss drops the Wizards to 2-1. They are now tied with Charlotte, Cleveland, and Atlanta for 3rd in the Eastern Conference. So here's the week ahead for Washington. For the Wizards, the week begins on Tuesday when they return home to host the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons come in at 1-2. They're tied with Indiana, Toronto, Chicago, and Miami for 9th in the Eastern Conference. Detroit's coming off a 124-115 loss in Indiana on Saturday, and they've lost 2 in a row. This is the first of 3 between the Wizards and the Pistons. Last season, Washington won all 4 games against Detroit. On Friday, the Wizards will be on ESPN as they take on the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are currently 1-2. They're tied with Toronto, Chicago, Detroit, and Miami for ninth in the Eastern Conference. Indiana's coming off the 124-115 win over the Pistons on Saturday that you've heard earlier, thanks to 27 points off their first-round draft pick, Benedict Mathurin. This is the second of four between the Wizards and the Pacers. Washington leads the season series 1-0 after beating Indiana 114-107 in Indianapolis on October 19th. And for the Wizards, the week and the month conclude on Sunday when they head to Boston to take on the Celtics. The Celtics are currently 3-0. That's good for first place in the Eastern Conference. Boston's coming off a 126-120 win in Orlando on Saturday, and obviously they've won 3 in a row to start the season. This is the first of 3 between the Wizards and the Celtics. Last season, Washington and Boston split 4 games. And that's it for this update, but stay tuned for plenty of good content from Noah, Nadi, and Abdullah as they cover our Commanders in a pivotal game this week as they head to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. But until next time, I'm Evan from DMV Sports Zone, signing off.